Hi, everybody. I'm Louise, and I'm an alcoholic. There are a lot of little yellow things for you to read. It's hard to... Thank you, Justin. I want to thank the committee for having me here. Thank you very much, and you've been so kind, and thanks for making all my arrangements, Melissa, and all that. And Judy Carroll, where are you? There she is, picking me up at the airport. I appreciate it. She was of great service to do that. Thank you very much for getting us here safe. And for those of you that live here, you live in a beautiful, like Kay was saying, you live in a beautiful part of the country. It's just gorgeous up here. So thank you for having me again. Anyway, I grew up in Venice, California, which is it was kind of shady back then, kind of creepy. My mother and I lived in a little duplex, and it was just her and I in this little duplex on Victoria Avenue. We lived west of Lincoln Boulevard, which was just a few, just really close to the beach. If you went east of Lincoln Boulevard, you were going out of town, and you'd go to Santa Monica. There was really no reason to go anywhere else, but if you went to the valley, that was like you were a bad person if you went to the valley. Nobody went over the hill, and why would you? It's 100 degrees over there. But anyway, so it was just her and I, and my mom talked, she talked really funny. She had a very thick Scottish accent. She was from Glasgow. And so it was kind of, growing up, I didn't want a lot of the kids coming over to my house. It wasn't fun. I didn't want them hearing her accent because they would ask why my mom talks funny. Kids just ask a lot of questions. And in my house, growing up, you were not allowed to ask questions. Like, where's Daddy? When's Daddy coming home? No one was coming home. And, you watch all these TV shows, like, I was born in 1965. You'd watch all these TV shows like, Ozzie and Harriet, Leave It to Beaver. Daddy was always coming home with the briefcase. Hi, honey, I'm home. Nothing like that, And so I learned you just don't ask questions. And I hated other kids coming over. There was a lot of kids in our neighborhood and stuff, and everybody played together and all that. But when they came over and they would ask those things, I don't like it because now I gotta make something up because I feel so different from you, and I don't want them to hear my mom's voice because then they're going to ask another question. And it just wasn't common for a lot of people that had, parents that weren't from the United States. It didn't seem like, and you just, once everything had to be neat, tidy, clean, and organized in our house, because it just meant that there's no problems, there's nothing to have to worry about. And so once the bed's made, you can't sit on it. And my mom, sometimes she would just get up on a Sunday morning. I'm ready to go out on my, my bike or my roller skates with my girlfriends, and she would just say, "Come on, Lise, start scraping that wall." And she'll hand me a wallpaper scraper. I'm like 8 years old. "I've soaked it, Dune. Come on, start scraping." "Ah, it's a good wee girl." And like, okay, you just do it. You don't ask, you can't ask questions, so you just do it. My mom wallpapered every year. She changed that wallpaper. Every year. She was really good at it too, and she was like, really good with the bargain because we didn't have money. But she always said, even though we're poor, it doesn't mean that we don't have to be dirty. We can live really, really clean, and everything's tight. The Irish lace curtains because her parents were Irish, and so scraping the walls and painting, and I was really good. I always, because my hands were small, so I had to paint all the trim. That's hard labor for a child. That's not right. But anyway, I just, so I would paint all the trim and stuff, and my mom, she'd practically go butch on me. She'd get her tool belt on, and she would start taking out, not just changing the plates of the electrical appliance, things, she would change the whole outlet. And then she would start screwing them, and she'd say, "We don't need a man in this house, Lise." And, okay, I'm just going to keep scraping, I'm going to be quiet. And she would just change everything, and she'd wallpaper the little plates and all that. And anyway, so we just... everything was neat and organized and tidy, as I said, and the windows were always washed. And I just and in Venice, where I grew up, there was a pocket of Scottish people and a few Irish, and so you called everybody aunt and uncle, and my mom would say it's because we're related through the drink, and I understood that because every weekend they'd all get together, and so I would. My mom would put on her Engelbert Humperdinck songs, her albums on the big console with TV connected in it, and she'd play those records, and we would be in the bedroom, and the wallpaper would be always big flowers, different colors, and we had all that white furniture from the Sears catalog, and with the little gold trim on it and the fancy handles, and the canopy bed that had all the pink lace and all the poof, the bling, all that girly stuff, and I would sit and just watch her get ready for the party, and she'd have her cocktail, and my mother, she was tall and blonde and blue eyes, and she was just beautiful to me, just beautiful, and so she'd have her cocktail, and she would do her makeup, and this is in the 70s, and it'd be that blue eyeshadow she'd put on, and some frosty stuff, and she'd put her hair in that French twist and in front of that mirror and then have a sip and hum, to Engelbert. And those of you that are younger, I don't know how to spell it. If you want to go Google it, I have no idea. But anyway, he was very popular back then. And I still have all her albums, actually, today. And anyway, so she'd do her hair in the French twist, and then she'd go over to that little styrofoam hedge, that had the little hair piece on it that she had just picked up from the beauty parlor. And I remember all the aunts, like in my mom, they would always wrap their hair in toilet paper, and I thought it was like a Scottish ethnic thing, but I couldn't realize just a 70s thing, that they would just do that, and so she'd get that little hair piece and get it just dead center. We have to have a moment of silence for the hairpiece because it can't be off, just can't be off. And so she'd get that kind of just dead center, and then those big bobby pins, she put in and take another drink, and then she'd have those long muumuus that women wore in the 70s, those long dresses, and then she would go to that tall can of Aquanet on the dresser, that tall pearlescent thing, and then she would just start spraying it up, and we're just gagging and choking, but she would just get it all thick, because nothing's moving, and it's big, So, anyways, and she put that on, and then she'd go to her little tray that was on her dresser, with the mirror tray with all the perfumes, and dead center is that one, the special one, which was Estee Lauder Youth Dew, and she'd pick that up and she'd start squirting, and she'd finish her drink and she'd go, "Come on, we're going," and we'd just total over. She'd get her little albums together and we'd go over to whoever's house. They rotated homes, every week and stuff. It was a thing that they did every weekend. Sometimes they'd rent a hall because it was like a big to-do or something, and they would just create fun, just like it's kind of like how a lot of Alcoholics Anonymous does in places of the country. We just create fun, but we do it without alcohol now, but they did it with a lot of alcohol. And anyways, so we'd go over and it's kind of like how I go into my home group now every Wednesday. I walk around and I say hi to people. I give, the old timers that I know hugs and kisses. And it wasn't until a while doing that in sobriety at my home group that I thought, God, this is just like when I was growing up as a kid, because I'd walk in and I'd walk around and you give all your aunts and uncles, hugs and kisses and stuff, and they're happy to see you. And all the kids were treated very well. We just had to not be in their way. And then all the adults would be there, and Uncle Mike, he would come with a drum and a microphone and some that box thing, anyway, so that you hear them out of, and he would have 2 sticks and stuff, and he was the band. That was the band. "Oh, the band's here," they'd say. And anyways, and a few little Irish people would come. No English. I don't know why. That just was not allowed. And anyway, so then everybody, there were 2 rules, that everybody had their own song to sing. You could not sing anybody else's song. You can't. And then everybody would bring their bottle, and you can't drink out of anybody else's bottle, even if you guys drink the same thing. You just can't. And so once that's kind of set, we're pretty okay. So anyway, so the night would go on, and everybody they'd be having a good time, and I loved when it would come my mom's turn to sing, because it's funny, because even though we didn't talk a lot, I sat in the living room on the floor. My mom sat on the edge of the sofa. She watched TV every night. She drank. She smoked cigarettes. She knitted, and she talked on the phone all at the same time. She did this night after night after night, and I couldn't talk. We had no conversations, and I would sit in the middle of the floor in front of the TV with all my Barbies. I loved my Barbies, and I still have a lot of my Barbies packed away in nice, neat containers, and except for my one favorite one that Sean Starr stole. and his mother was babysitting me, and we were playing G.I. Joes and Barbies. He lived down the street, and his mother was Australian, and I remember that kid stole my Barbie, and I tell you, I was a shy, quiet little girl. I mean, my mom would have my hair in pigtails with either flowers stuck to them or just poof in them, ribbons, I mean, just all this stuff, and everything was pressed neat and tidy, and I was a shy, quiet little girl. I just clung on to her polyester pants all the time. I was just afraid, I didn't want you looking at me. If you looked at me, I would just turn red. And when that kid stole my Barbie, I got to tell you, I felt a rage for the first time that I never knew I had inside me, and it felt good. It felt good. I mean, I beat that kid up every chance I got. I don't know what kind of sick thing he was trying to, flirt with, but not with my dolls. I was just mad. And then he was a wuss because he'd hide behind his mommy, So, I mean, she'd get a kick in the shin sometimes too, and she was just this little thing. And I didn't feel bad at all, And I tell you, even as a result of 13 and a half years sober today, I don't like sharing my stuff. Like when he couldn't find glasses to talk last night or whenever it was, I thought, I'm not giving him my glasses. That's how even when I go to a meeting and someone says, do you have a pen? Because they're like all excited, they're going to give their newcomer their phone number or something. I'm thinking, if you want to be a hot shot, bring your own pen. It's my thought, like, I'm not giving you my pen because I never get a bag. I mean, that's that whole thing still. But anyways, and, just real bratty, like a new Barbie won't fix it. And so anyway, so that was my first feeling of that rage. And anyway, so we go to, we're at the party, you say hi to everybody. And then my mom would start singing her song, and it was I'm Always Chasing Rainbows. And I got to tell you, I spent many a nights after she died at a piano bar called Dear John's in Culver City with the piano player Ruthie singing that song over and over and over for me because I was doing that sick, morbid kind of drinking. And because it was the time I only felt connected to her. I felt a real connection because I knew when she was singing that song and the look on her face, she was happy. She was wherever that alcohol was taking her, where she was in a comfortable spot. And I don't know why, but as this little child, I understood her at that point. And I felt connected to her like as if it was last night, and I heard her and stuff. And I just loved her so much. And anyways, my auntie, she was the only blood relation that I had. Her and my uncle came here a year before I was born to this country, and this was my mom's little sister. And Auntie's she's very feisty. She even at 73, she's still crazy, and she always wanted to be a performer. And her song was "Stella by Starlight." And the only problem with my aunt that she would have a few drinks, but she was kind of like one of those teaspoon drunks, like a teaspoon, and she's gone. I mean, it's a waste. It's just a waste. And so she'd get the mic and she'd start singing her song, and her she had another big problem is her teeth would just come flying out. Always come flying out of her mouth. And then Uncle Mike would be on the drum, the band. He'd say, "Ooh, Ina's lost her wallies, nobody move." And it was like, and then my aunt, then he would go, "Ooh, the dog's got him." And so the dog's chewing on her teeth, and not wanting to let him go and stuff. And my aunt would just go grab her teeth. The show must go on, She was convinced this is her moment. And so she would dunk him in some Al-Anon's drink, and then that Al-Anon would start throwing up. And it's just a mess. And then she'd put him back in, and then she'd start singing her song, And I remember even like after my mom's drunken nights and stuff, waking up as a kid in the morning and just she can never find her teeth either. I'd have to help her find her teeth, and ever since the fourth grade, I was a really good flosser and brusher, and still am today. I don't know my teeth. We've had to look for other items, but not my teeth. But anyway, so she Auntie would finish her song, and then the night would get a little thick, and they're getting really drunk, and all those old country songs would come out. Not country as in like country like Western here, but like the old Scottish country songs that are just not good. Booze does not go with it. And we were not Catholic. Everybody else was, but we weren't. And we weren't raised with, my mom, we never went to church. I mean, the only time we went to any kind of church or was when one of the Scottish people got married, and then there was a funeral, and it was always one of the Catholic ones, but I knew that wasn't ours. So that's all I knew. But my mom did teach me a prayer when I was a child, and that's all I knew. And so someone would mention the Pope. And I really thought that was like the F word. I thought it was a bad word because it would just go quiet. And it just dead silence. And then the Irish one would blurt out, Jesus, Mary and bloody Joseph, there's going to be a fight. And then it just gets quiet and everybody's looking around. And then all of a sudden, there's a fight. And they're outside, and all the little Al-Anon aunties are putting the kettle on, making a stack of sandwiches. Because I think was it Kay that said that like that's going to cure the drunk, it's going to make them better. And I related to that because I saw it in action. Get the Waynes in, because we would all be outside. That's kids. We'd all be outside watching them fight. And it was the only time I ever saw my mother have like physical contact with another man, because she was on him and hitting them and just going to town. And really, she had quite a resentment. I didn't know that until I did my 4-step, but. It just so that's what it was like, and all the aunts would want to rally us all in, and the drunks out on the street fighting because they were afraid that the neighbors were going to see us. But the thing is, we were all the neighbors. We all lived in that neighborhood, and this went on all the time. So it was just kind of that delusion of what goes on, and that this really isn't the problem kind of thing and stuff. But I do have to say, after applying the steps in my life and doing like the 9-step and making amends, I really have seen that that there was all this kind of chaotic stuff that went on, but I was treated very well as a child, and I think all of us kids were. Everybody was your cousin, and no harm ever came to any of us kids. Like, nobody got physically harmed. And anyways, so because when I came into Alcoholics Anonymous, I was a victim. I was a complete victim, and what happened to me and what didn't happen, it was just horrible. It took years to start getting through that and shedding some stuff and starting to see it in a different way, in a different light, because my perception was so screwed up. And anyway, so I was probably about 13. I was going in between junior high and high school, and in Venice, and I had my bike, my little beach cruiser, and one of my best friends at the time, Joanne, we heard that there was this backyard party and that there was going to be bands and keggers and cute guys, and it was really popular, the long hair and all that, and so we were really psyched up for this. And so somebody bought us 2 bottles of Boone's Farm. And I don't know why that was, just like that's what we started with. And I was so excited. We went behind a building, and I just started chugging that Boone's Farm. And she, on the other hand, she was spitting it up. She was choking, she was gagging. And I remember at that moment thinking, gosh, alcohol's not doing for her what it's doing for me. And I really felt sorry for her, because I felt good, I loved it. I mean, the minute that started going into me and warming me up, it just, I felt it was like a new freedom. That there were things that mattered before didn't matter anymore. And so she only had like the neck done, So I finished hers, and she got on the handlebar, bumped into a lot of palm trees, but we made it to this party, and sure enough, there were bands playing. There was a lot of local bands at that time, and there were keggers and a lot of guys. And I hooked up with this guy that was a drummer in another band. He was a lot older than me. Like, he was just kind of getting out of high school. And when I think of like at 13, when I see 13-year-olds today, when I meet a 13-year-old, and I think, oh my God, I mean, they're babies. And I thought, I was really grown up, and I was different. And anyway, so I don't know, the following weekend, this guy pulls up on his cruiser to pick me up, and my mom's like, how old is he, and why doesn't he have a car, and I'm thinking, who cares about this stuff, but anyway, and so we go to Joe's Liquor over on Lincoln Boulevard, and I wait outside, and then he comes out with this big bag, and I got on the handlebars, and he said, hold this, and I looked inside it, and it was a big bottle of 151, and a bag of ice, and a 2-liter bottle of Coke, and 2 cups. And I thought, you bet, I just held on tight, and away we went, down the street, and I thought, wow, this is so cool, I'm going on a date. This is great. I thought, wow, look at me, it's the summer, going into high school, and away we went to Penmar Park. That's where our date was, the park. And we're sitting at the park, and he's mixing our drinks and stuff, and I just thought this was great. And then other kids start, showing up and everything, and then people do other liquor runs and this, and then, and I I didn't realize it at the time. I had no idea what it was called, but I would just like lose time. I would just kind of come to, and somebody's talking to me, and I think, oh my God, did I just like doze off? I mean, you're trying to figure it out, but you can't say anything. And it's funny how here we'll talk about, God, I'm going through a little anxiety. I've got this problem. Da, da, da. When you're at the bar, you're not talking about that. You're just such, you're something else there. And it's just funny how now we're just so transparent here with each other, even though like I don't know a lot of you guys and stuff. And anyway, so. It was blackouts. I would just automatically go into a blackout, because nothing in me says you're getting a little buzz, stop. Like I would say to Joanne, how come I'm always screwing up? I'm always the one that messes up, and like you just seem to be like so perfect. And that really made me sick. And anyway, she would say, well, I feel a little buzz, and then I stop and I just drink a little water, and I think, oh my God. That like doesn't make sense to me. That seems boring, wasteful, and go home. Go away. I don't like it. And so I start drinking, and I just I get that physical allergy. I don't want to. I can't stop. And I'm busy looking to see. You just took a sip. I mean, are you taking more? Where's mine and stuff? And I'm monitoring. So I come out of a blackout in mid conversation, and it just. The only way I can describe like a blackout is it's like the I Dream of Jeannie show. Blink. Ooh, okay, here I am. And then blink, oh, now we're at the beach. I mean, I was, okay, same clothes, same day. I mean, it was just like always having to piece it together, like, okay, blink, I was blinking out of a lot of things. I came to once, and it was very important in the summer, like we go to the beach every day, and you got to get home, because this was in the early 80s, for Luke and Laura for General Hospital, because us girls were obsessed with them kissing, because we had never done that yet. And it was just like a big thing. And so I came out of the shower and getting ready, and I just came out of this blackout, because I was never one of those drunks that would just kind of go into a blackout, pass out. I keep moving. And that's dangerous. I mean, I just keep moving. And so I cause a lot of wreckage, and some I have no idea at the time. And anyway, so I come out of blackout, and I'm looking in the mirror, and I'm like, oh my God, it was like blink. Oh, I was blonde. I had long hair like I have now, and I was completely blonde. And I thought, what happened? I was just at the beach. Like I can't figure this out. But later, because I got to watch, Luke and Laura. But anyway, well, what had happened was I had a bottle of whiskey, and I was drinking that out at the beach with my girlfriend. And then this was really popular back then, that spritzer stuff called Sun In. And so, I just don't buy Sun In. Like, it's just not Bacardi, it's 151 kind of thing. I like that better. And it was super Sun In. And, you're supposed to spray a little bit in your hair, and it enhances your natural highlight. So I poured the whole bottle in my head, someone said. And that's what happened. But, like, 2 days later, it turns orange. It's completely a mess. So then, everything has to be chopped off and stuff. So, and whatever. I never saw that, perhaps that had something to do with my drinking. I, didn't know that. And I was always coming out of blackout. I came out of blackout one day, and I hadn't been home yet. And I came to, and I was jogging on the beach with some guy, and I didn't know him. He was nice, but I didn't know him. But the only problem was I was not a jogger, and and my heart, your heart's just pounding, and you're trying to keep it together. You just kind of come to, and you're like, okay, let's just keep it together. And then that some kind of resilient energy comes forth, and we're going the wrong way. We're going towards Santa Monica Pier. I live towards Venice Pier. I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm going to die. But then I perk up because he mentions margaritas. So, okay, I can hang in there, I stayed at this guy's house for like 3 days, and I didn't even know him. But he was very, very kind and whatever. He just kept mixing margaritas. And anyway, so I was always popping out of a blackout. I came to, and it was evening, and I was in a golf cart, and the guy's driving, and he says, I'm like, okay, what's going on? You're just like, oh no. And he goes, do you see it? And I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm too young. I was 16. I thought, I'm golfing? Like, I don't golf. Like, and I didn't know you can golf at night. You're trying to, I'm trying to puzzle the thing together. I don't golf at night, I don't golf, and now it's nighttime, and do these balls glow in the dark? I mean, I don't know. And then some chump behind me starts, chiming in, and I'm like, who the heck are you? I don't even know who he is. And, and then after piecing it together, I was at a concert, and I had a habit at a concert, kind of embarrassing, but the women's bathroom lines, there was always lines, like right out down the hall. So I would go into the men's bathroom. They never kicked you out. And then once in a while, one would follow you. That was the guy in the bathroom. back. And so I couldn't find my car. And then they drove me around in the golf cart. So, when things get pieced together, it's like, oh my God, what work? What work? I was carried out of a Jackson Browne concert because I wouldn't stop screaming, just ridiculous. It's really, I had big mouth, and I was one of those, that Jekyll and Hyde that it describes in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, that I could not predict once I started drinking what I was going to be like at all. I could be very sweet, and you could be my best friend. And then I remember coming to at times where there would be a girl I barely even knew, and I would just be in a fight with her and just slamming her face on the ground and just not knowing, like, I would justify that she must have done something to make me mad. That's all I would think. I wouldn't even know, like, what I had done. And I have to keep drinking because I don't want to think about what I had done to this other human being. And I don't know this girl today. There's no way I can find her to make an amends to her. But what I have had to do through my step work is that I have to be kind to women. I can't have these kind of confrontations. And I have to do those quiet little things that only God and I know. Those little things that you have to do. So, and I can't tell you, because if I do, then I have to think of something else to do. So I can't tell you, because I let one out of the bag the other day, so now I have to think of something else. But that's just the kind of recovery that will keep me in a humble position, that it's just between me, God, and a sponsor. And so, so I was like this. I had gotten married when I was 21, and I had no idea, or I was 24. We met when I was 21. I came out of blackout. We were on our first date. And he's a nice guy. He was a nice guy. We were on a date, and I thought, oh my God. And I told my girlfriend I thought he was cute and he was nice, and then poof, there I am. And so we were married for 13 and a half years, nice guy, but I just, the problem is when you get married, they usually come home every night. I mean, he's an Al-Anon, so he came home every night. But they want you to feed them. They want dinner. And I don't know how to cook. I knew shake and bake chicken, and there was only about 3 different boxes on the shelf at the time at the market. And I won't touch this stuff today, but because I made it, that's all all I knew how to do. And it was just pathetic. It was just a pathetic wife. And so I would think, okay, barbecue or whatever, and I'll make a salad. And I can't even pull that together. I mean, I don't know how to work a barbecue. So they usually take that over in case anybody's getting married. That's a good tip. But if it rains a lot here, I don't know what you're going to do. I don't know. But anyways, I'm not Louise helpful tips. But so I came out of a blackout, and I was on top of the washing machine, and he was laughing at me. And I thought, oh my God, am I doing one of those sick little fantasy dances or something? I mean, I had no idea what I was doing. And I thought, how the heck did I get up here on this washing machine? And he's laughing at me. And so, you always they have to be punished at that point. And but what had happened was, and he was, but what had happened, I was making the salad, and I didn't quite get, you just do some funny things, and it's not nice to laugh at us. But I put the whole salad in the washing machine. And then I remember after he said that I only alcoholics think this, I thought, oh my God, how brilliant is that? I must have invented the salad spinner. I mean, just think about it. I was like, right around that time, I thought, yeah, it goes into, rinse, spin, and, there's a tossed salad right there. And, but of course he had to clean it all out, so I don't know how well that worked. But I remember, we think these odd things, and I just, I was never picky about what I drank. It was wine, vodka, 151, tequila with the worm in it. I like that. I like beer. I like Mickey's Big Mouth in a 12-pack. I like Old English 800 in a 40-ouncer, Budweiser in tall cans. It was kind of like how, they kind of went. And just all kinds of different things. I liked Yukon Jack. I remember when I was, when I was 13 and I started drinking, I was drinking about 2 years. I was 15, and it got to a point where when I started drinking, and this is like a really dangerous place, I know for me as an alcoholic, I would start thinking about things and things that I don't have and things that my mother never gave me. Then my mother became my target. She became my target of anything that went wrong in my life, and I started to have the meanest, coldest heart that that a person can have, that a daughter could have for a parent. And I didn't know at that time, like, all my mom wanted to do was just love me. She just wanted to love her daughter and give her daughter what she could, and I could not see that. And there were so many times, like, I wouldn't come home, and or if I did, I remember one time I came to, and I had my head in my mom's lap. She was sitting at the kitchen table having her tea. She did that every night when she came home, and in the morning when she got up. And I remember just sobbing, and I didn't know. I just came to, and that was like that. And I just said to her, "Do you think I'm an alcoholic?" And I didn't know, like, what went on. And she sat up real stiff, and she said, "No, Lise, alcoholics put alcohol in their coffee. We're Scottish in this house, and we drink tea." She was just, like, real about that. And I just thought, oh, my God. And I don't know where any of that came from. And then, but I do remember this, and it's really embarrassing to tell you, but I need to tell you this stuff because it's part of my story. She had just showed me all the bruises on her body. I had beat her up so bad on one side of her body. And still, alcoholism was in our home, and there was so much just covering it up that to her, that had nothing to do with alcoholism. It was just we were going through a bad spell. And a few weeks later, I came home one morning, and my mom, she opened the door, and she told me, she said, "You know what, you've got to leave. You can't live here anymore." And I know today that must have been a really hard thing, and especially hearing Kay, about her kids and stuff. Like, it's a really hard thing for a parent to do, where somebody that just loves you, for them to say you can't. I mean, I was 15, and I was her only child. It was all she had, and for her to say, "You know what, you got to go. You can't. You're not welcome here. I'm not safe here." Because I would come to when she would let me in, and I would be on the floor picking stuff out of the shag carpet, because I don't know what I would be on. I would like see things growing out of the carpet, and she would just be sitting on the sofa just stiff as a board, And sometimes our next door neighbor would be there because she would be afraid to be with me alone, like what I was going to do. And she said, "You got to go." And so I called a girlfriend of mine that I've known since junior high, and her family. Well, I called a few, and they said no. And then one girlfriend who lived up in Marvista, her and her parents, they said I could come live with them. And they have a certain religion that gets a lot of flack in the media and stuff, but I have to tell you that my experience living at their home, they were very kind to me, and her parents treated me like another human being. I mean, they were really kind, and she had a younger brother and an older sister who did not live there, but and they just treated me like one of them, and they never tried to like push their religion on me at all. And I was really grateful for that they just let me be. But my problem was I have alcoholism, and I don't stop, And then there were different chores every day, and I could never keep up on what chores they were of the day. It was just really hard to keep up on all this stuff, and so I didn't know what I'm supposed to do. And I would go out, and I would come home like right when it's time to get ready to go to school, and I just I don't know how long I stayed there. Sometimes I'd have to babysit the kid. I'm not good at babysitting, not at all, because I will mix drinks. And, not have, parental guidance on what we're going to watch on TV. I mean, just who knows? And anyways, and then I would come to, and I wouldn't know, like, where's the kid? I just wouldn't know. And I just, and then I just keep moving. I go on to the next thing. And after a while of living there, they came to me and they said, "You know what, Louise," because they went out of town. I had a party at their house, and it did not go well. And so they came to me. Their landlord lived next door. I didn't know that. And so they said, and the house got trashed. They said, you have to go. Our house is no longer calm, with you here. We like you, but, we can't have this going on in our home. And as a result of the 9th step and me going back to this family, I still have contact with them. And my girlfriend, we see each other every few months. We meet for lunch, and sometimes I see her parents, and they just want me in their life. I mean, they like that I have a different way of living now, and they like to know what's going on. And we catch up, and it's just really lovely, and that's only because of Alcoholics Anonymous. And because I would have been so mad that they had kicked me out, back then, and I would still be holding on to stuff like that, still drinking, like, God, nobody understands me. And so anyways, Then I went to live with a boyfriend and his family, and that didn't go over so well after a while either. They came to me and said the same thing. And I remember thinking, God, what's wrong with people? You know, nobody wants to have fun, you know? And, but I just caused a lot of that walking on eggshells all the time because you didn't know when I was going to be happy or when I was going to be mad. I mean, just that Jekyll and Hyde all the time. And I just, so I went back home, and I asked my mom if I can come back home and live, and I didn't tell her that I had gotten kicked out. I just really thought that, you know what, maybe I can be different now and stuff, and I just couldn't. I just couldn't. Even though I had that idea that I'd like to be different now, and I wish I could be like the other girls in my class that seemed to do okay, and I would always think, what's wrong with me? I just can't figure out what the hell is wrong with me. And but you know, I was still like, my solution was like, you know, to meet up with everybody else at the park and just start drinking. And then, you know, I wouldn't know. I would lose track of time. And it would happen again and again, you know, with my mom. We would just get in these conflicts, and it just, and what it was alcoholism, and I would come in like a roaring drunk, and that, you know, I held her accountable for everything that went wrong. You know, me not having a dad, I hung on to that for a long time, not knowing who my dad is. I would try to snoop through her things, and it was after she died, I came across my birth certificate after she died, and it was from Baldwin Hills Memorial Hospital, and it had my mother, or it had her beautiful signature, you know, and then over father, the line of father, it says refuse to state, and it just, you know, I just held on to that kind of stuff for so long, and I didn't look like her, I didn't talk like her, you know, I'm not close to this family, and just like all the differences, all the time, all the differences, and that's why I'm the way I am, and you would be this way too, until I came into Alcoholics Anonymous, and I remember vividly hearing a woman talk named Polly P., and she had blonde hair. I think she's from the South or somewhere, but I remember she grew up with religion that was beautiful, it seemed like, and two parents that loved her, and I remember nudging my sponsor and going, oh my God, they're here too. They're drunks too. Like you guys that have what I thought was so different, you're drunks too. And that's when I started seeing that there is something called alcoholism, and it has there's no, you know, it just happens. I can't think of the word. There's no discrimination over it. And anyway, so it started happening again with my mom, and I was probably, I remember coming out of a blackout. I was in my cap and gown at my high school graduation thinking, oh my God, did I go down and get my diploma, or am I waiting for them to take, I mean, everything was always so confusing. And that's how I live, like that all the time. My mom, when I was 21, she got cancer. She got diagnosed with, we had went to Scotland, we visited our family, we came back, and a few months later she was diagnosed with cancer. And she had lung cancer, and they tried to remove half her lung, and it was too close to her heart, so they had to close her back up. And within 6 months, she died. And I remember still, like, now really feeling like sorry for myself, that great, I'd never had a dad, and now my mom's dying, and why is this happening to me? And it was just all about me. And I remember when my mom was home, and, you know, to try to take care of her, you know, I couldn't cook for her, I couldn't give her a bath. I was just so, you know, that's when I started running down to Ensenada all the time. I didn't do a lot of geographics, but I would just take off and go down to Ensenada, because you could really forget about things down there. And I couldn't take care of this woman. My aunt moved in, and my aunt helped her to die. And I remember when my mom was in the hospital, and it was about 2 weeks before she died. I remember I was in there, and I came out of another blackout, and I was demanding to know. I was leaning over her bed, demanding to know who my father is, just going on, drilling her. And she's on a lot of morphine, and she's kind of coming in and out, and she's getting really afraid. And she said, you have to leave me alone. I'm going to call it. She's calling the nurse. And I knew all these people at the hospital because my aunt worked there. My aunt and uncle worked at this hospital. And so we knew everybody. And my aunt came running down, the nun came running down, and the nurse came in. And the nun who I know her today still, and she escorted me out the back door and talked to me, and it just I couldn't see it. I just couldn't see it, and so my mom died, and that was it. And I had went to my 10-year high school reunion. I had gotten married, went to my 10-year, I thought that was going to be the fix, nice guy, and it wasn't. And went to my 10-year high school reunion. I came to the next morning, and something different happened. There was some vodka left, and I don't know why. I poured it down the sink. I have no idea why I did that, because I never did anything like that. And I made it home. I don't know what I told him, but he left. He took the gun in a case and left. And I just remember Joanne's sister had about 3 years of sobriety, and she was the first person who ever got me stoned when I was 13. So I thought, I'm going to call her. And I felt inside, even though I was still fading in and out of a blackout from the night before, I felt some kind of a desperation inside that I can't really describe it. And so I thought, I'm going to call her. So I couldn't see. It was really blurry because I used to wear disposable contact lenses. So I got the 2 bags out with all of them in there because I thought I needed to put my contacts in. And I had the phone in the phone book. And I was trying to dial her number, but it was blurry. So, and I kept coming, you come to and you're like, okay, hang in there. You're trying to talk to yourself and stuff. And then, so I kept putting contacts in my eyes, but I wouldn't remember. So I had like 4 in one eye, 5, and this was so blurry, I just kept backing them in, stacking them on top of each other. And I tell you, if you're new, it's not such hard work. If you just kind of, just tag along with the sponsor. If you got a good sponsor, tag along. I mean, it's not that much hard work. It just, than what it was like. It just, anyways, so I don't even remember calling her. I have no idea. But next thing I knew, my doorbell was ringing, and she was there. And she took me to her house, and we sat at her kitchen table. And she had about 3.5 years, and everything, and that's a lot of time. That's a heck of a lot of time. And we sat down, and to me, she talked a heck of a lot. But all I remember what she said was, I have tools to live my life differently today. I can handle situations that used to baffle me. And I remember that got my attention. It got my attention so loudly because I remember thinking, oh my God, I have been baffled my whole life. That's it. And she says, I have Alcoholics Anonymous I go to, Louise, and that's my life. And so she took me to a meeting that night. We went to the Marina Center. And I remember I'm still like bopping in and out and stuff. And she, we sat in the back, and they asked you to stand up, as a newcomer. I thought, oh my God. I just felt like I was purple and like wet. You know what I mean? That like your brain's just a soppy sponge and just icky. And so I wouldn't stand up because my head kept going in between my knees because I felt like I was going to barf any minute. And I got to tell you, I have found, if you're new, that Alcoholics Anonymous is really the most socially acceptable place you could barf in. I mean, it really is. I mean, if you did it in the supermarket, they're going to look at you kind of funny, And but here we don't. We'll just get an angry woman and a spiritual guy to clean it up. And there we go. But it just and so she said to me, she didn't tell me what she just said. I'll meet you here tomorrow. And she took me home, and I went home, and he wasn't there, and I thought, oh my God, and he has the gun, and I was getting a little sobered up now, and I called her up, and she's only got like 3 years, so she's in that drama, that new drama. She's not thought out completely yet, right? So I called her, and I said, oh my God, he went to go kill himself. I just know it. And so she got her husband involved. They were going to come over and pick me up, and she goes, where do you think he would go? And I said, well, I'd go to the beach. So he probably went to the beach. I got this whole thing going, and then I hear his truck coming, and so I said, oh, he's home, So then we got off the phone, and he came walking through the threshold with that gun case, and this is really embarrassing, but I have to tell you, because I hope I never take these actions again, but I was one of those women that was like an ankle grabber, and if you're an ankle grabber and you're still doing it, you got to stop, because it's really bad. So, because I would just I plunge, like going for, home base, the ankles, and it was always that oh my God, and it's just so dramatic, do you love me? How much do you love me? Why do you love me? What makes you love me? When did you first start that drill? If you're doing that to a man, oh my God, stop. It's just really embarrassing. But just that whole thing of you need to be whole to make me whole. You need to say whatever it is I feel you need to say, but you don't know what it is. But to make me feel like I'm okay and I'm a whole woman. That's how I did this marriage. And so anyways, I dive for the ankles. I grab on like I know how to do. And I said, oh my God, I thought you were going to kill yourself. He looks down and he gets out of the clutch and he says, over you? It was so embarrassing. It's like, he'd had it. And he locked it up, went in his office and locked himself in, and I thought, oh my God. And then as he's walking, I'm doing this thing now, I'm just like kind of coming to, I've been to the Marina Center for me, I have no idea what they said, and I heard her say, that one phrase of, I have tools to live my life differently today, and as he's walking away, this is such the alcoholic, but I've been to AA, like, all should be right with the world now, you should forgive everything now, and boy, I gotta tell you, it's been quite a journey in that, Becky said, there's a meeting here at 6:45 a.m. I'll meet you here. And I just got up that morning, the next day, and I met her there. And I went the next day. And she says, there's meetings here from Monday through Friday. Why don't you go to a women's meeting so that if you can't get a hold of me, she started that she was going to be my sponsor. And she said, if you can't get a hold of me, it's important that you are connected with a group of women so that way you have a network that you can call one of them. And it's not like a freeze on the phone. They're familiar with who you are. And so I did that, and then I was the cookie lady at the Friday night Marina Center, and then Tuesdays and Saturday nights I would go to different meetings, like the studio group, and on Sunday nights I would go to, with the man I was married to at the time, an Al-Anon family groups, where there was AA and Al-Anon participation. That was the format of that meeting. It was in the hospital that my mother died in. And at the Marina Center every morning it was on a different step. And Becky right away, she would just get so excited when it was time to take a chip, and Friday nights it was the chips and stuff. And then she got me right into, we would read the book and I would start, step one, and I'd have to write on step one. She gave it to me the way it was given to her. And then I did my fourth step, and I remember calling her and telling her I'm done with my fourth step, and she got so excited, and she says, we have to make a date right now to do your fifth step. And then, I just left it up to her. Her enthusiasm just fed it to me, and she said, we'll go to Friday Night Marina Center, you take your 9-month chip, and then after that we'll go to my house and you read your fifth step. And I remember thinking, like, God, I feel sorry for people that come in and you don't know anybody, and you're going to do that with somebody you don't know. Because I knew her. I've known her since I was 13, so I felt a little lucky. Because I don't know if I'd want to be so honest, especially with some of the stuff I just told you that I've done, and more. And so... So I remember going to her house and reading it to her, and it took a few hours, and we read, and she shared back with me. And then I said, okay, I'm done. And she said, you're done? And I said, yeah, I'm done. She said, are you sure you're done? And I'm like, yeah, I'm done, And she said, and it was very kind how she did it. She said, Louise, I've known you since you were 13, and your best friend, is my younger sister, and you blacked out a lot. And there's a few things that you obviously don't remember that you have done. And I'm not telling you, I'm telling you so this way you're clean, so you know, and we could clean it up. And so she told me, and she said, there's other steps that we're going to go through, and we did all that. And I remember when at the Marina Center, I'd get around to the 9th step, and I would it was like a dark cloud over my head, like, how am I going to make amends to my mom? And I would tell her that, like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. I don't think I can do it. How? And she would just keep saying, trust God, and Louise, you're not on that step yet, and then when we got to that step, and I remember these women that the women's stag I went to, and I would go to them, and I would just tell them everything I was doing. Like, I remember one day the walls were just caving in, and I had about 30, 60 days, and it's really weird when you do weird actions sober, that before you could justify, I was just drunk. But now you're sober. Like, I pulled up all the carpet in our house. I just decided one day, like, it was just caving in. It looked bad. It was a plan, but not right away. And I just ripped them all. I ripped it all up. I took the baseboards off, the shoe molding, the tack board. I just went to town. And it was like that, you don't know what you're coming home to kind of thing. This poor guy. And, just the look on the face of, like, anyway. So, I would just do this kind of stuff, and I would think, and he'd say, but you're not drinking. It's confusing to those who love us. Like, he would say, you're not drinking. Like, why are you doing this? And I'm like, I don't know. I didn't know. I was just as confused as you. But I was just angry. I had just all this stuff inside me, and I didn't know how to process it because I couldn't take a drink. I didn't want to. And so I just, I would go to those women, I'd tell them, and they would just keep me busy, We're gonna pick somebody up, and we're gonna get you after, and we're gonna go visit someone in the hospital. We were just of service. We had to just keep being of service and going and doing things for others. And I thought that was really boring, and I didn't see how that was gonna help me. And then they said there's a women's retreat, and we're gonna go up there. So they picked me up, and we all went up to this women's retreat, and it was up in Malibu, and a pretty place, and stuff, and I remember walking around, and I saw this bench, and it caught my attention. And, I don't know if there's anything that I've said today that will catch your attention. Even if you're new, or even if you're not, and you've got some time, and you're going through a difficult period in your sobriety, that you just might not be thinking that maybe that this isn't going to work. That I hope that something this weekend, that one of the speakers or maybe somebody outside, something you've heard that just has gotten your attention. I hope you hang on to that, and that you just get to another meeting. Come to the meeting tonight and hang on to something, and then get to a meeting tomorrow and just keep hanging on, because that's hope. I have learned that that's hope. And the next thing I was doing was taking my chip, and that it's a lot of hope. There's a lot here, and I just hope you get that. So what got my attention was this little plaque on a bench, and I never paid attention to anything that wasn't going to be something for me. And I didn't know that until I did my step work. But anyway, that I was selfish and self-seeking. But anyways, it said, "In loving memory of Herb Anderson." And I thought, what a nice thing to do for somebody. That's really sweet. These guys must have really, whoever did it must have really loved this man. And so I went back down the hill, and I called Becky, and I said, "Do you think I can do something like that for my mom? Like, would that be an amends?" Because now I'm on my amends step, and I'm not talking to anybody but her about this, because I don't want you to know. I really don't want you to know. I'm still that full of that shame and that guilt, a lot of remorse, and that because now I'm seeing it more clearly of how my actions were, and they were my actions. It wasn't anything that she did or said. It was my actions. And because now I'm a sober member of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I must be accountable for my actions. And I said, "Beck, do you think that's something I can do?" And she said, "I think you should call them. Why don't you call them up?" And I did. And the man met with me, and he was just a really sweet, dear man. And he took me down the main drag there. And there was he said, there was a big tree, and he said, "Well, why don't you put a bench right here, And he said, "Well, why don't you plant some flowers and stuff?" And he was making a little bit more than what I was wanting. And I thought, okay. And he said, "And you know what, I'll bless it and everything. And then why don't you invite some people?" And okay. And I didn't even tell him that, what this was all about. I just asked if I could dedicate, a bench, in memory of my mom. And so I went back to Becky, and I said, it was really weird, because I felt like an adult, like he was treating me like an adult. Like that was an odd thing for a woman at 27 years old, And she said, "Louise, maybe because you're now starting to act like one." Whoa! Everything was like afterthought. Like, oh, like I feel like a real ditz. Okay. And so anyway, still even today, things like, oh, okay. And so I did. I went to the women's stag, and one of them, made up little invitations, and I told my aunt, what I was going to do, and she was all excited because after my mom died, there was no burial, there was no memorial, there was nothing. They took her body away and they cremated her, and whoever they were took care of it. I mean, there was just absolutely nothing that I participated in, and I felt really awful about that. I drank over that a lot, and so my aunt said, "Oh, Lise, I'm going to get a bagpiper." She was just all into this, and oh my God, so okay, and Auntie the performer, right? So, anyways, so she did that, and then she called me up and she said, "Oh, do you remember Tommy Allen and blah blah blah?" And then she said, "Oh, when your mother first came to this country, she used to date him." And right away, I think, "Oh, there's the miracle, there's my gift." That's Daddy. My whole head went like, oh, I've heard these stories. And Becky would say, Louise, this is not about you. Stop. And you know, everybody just kept bringing me back to the ground. And one of my girlfriends from the stag went to the nursery with me. And when we were walking in, and she stopped me, and she put her hands on my shoulder, and she looked me right in the eye, and she said, you know what? This is not about you. This is about your mother, and this is about giving her some honor. And you have to think about, what flowers did your mother like, Louise? And I just had this blank. I don't know. And she said, well, we better go back home and you better start thinking about this stuff. You know, this is not your show. And I'm so grateful for people being so direct with me like that. And so I just kept praying. I'd keep a little tab of paper next to me in my bed. And I'd wake up, and I remember have these visions of my mom, you know, planting marigolds or roses or whatever, you know, and I just started writing this stuff down. We went to the flower store, and I knew what my mother liked. This was the first time in my life, because of the process of Alcoholics Anonymous, this 9th step of making the amends, is that I, for the first time, started learning more about my mother than I knew about her when she was alive. And it was only because of you people, and because now I want to know. I want to know about this woman. Because, you know, it's pretty remarkable. I started thinking about her life more, and people started sharing little things to me. And I remember this one dream I had. And sometimes when I get up to start the day, and I have a good life today, but sometimes I'm just tired, and sometimes God's just not enough. I know God's big, but it's just like, okay, God, you know what? And then I think of this. And this is a memory I had when I was doing the process of this 9th step, that when I was a little girl, my mom and I lived on Victoria Avenue in that little duplex. Our heater didn't work for some reason. It didn't work. And she would get me up in the morning. And sometimes, yes, it does get cold down there sometimes. And anyway, so she'd put the stove on, and she'd have the oven, it open a little bit. And she would have a stool next to it with my school clothes. And she'd get me up. And she always did my hair in the pigtails with all the poof. And I had the bangs that were always straight. And she would kneel down on the cold linoleum. And I'd put my hands on her shoulders, and she would start dressing me. And I remember she had these beautiful blue eyes, and she would look at just right in me. And I remember she would say to me, you know, Louise, I grew up in an old country, and it was during World War II. And when I was 14, I was graduated from school, and I was making bombs in a factory. And I never had a doll until November 7th, 1965, when you were born. If I didn't get sober and go through that, I would never have known what a remarkable woman she was. And I got to tell you, I had beaten her up so bad one night that she had to have emergency eye surgery. She had a detached retina in her eye, and her eye was never the same. And so I just, I started feeling a little bit like maybe the slate can get a little clean now. And we had that little memorial, and people came. My mom's first boss came that she had in this country, and it wasn't until after doing more fifth step work, and with another sponsor I had gotten named Rita, that in 1965, in that time, it was not socially acceptable for a woman to have a child and not be married. And I never saw that until it was pointed out to me by other women in Alcoholics Anonymous, and that. When my mom was pregnant, she was very suicidal, and my aunt moved her in with them. And every day, this man that came to her memorial that I did, he would bring her day's work and take home the past days, so she could have a little bit of dignity to be able to stay home, because she never left the house when it was daylight. And I never knew all that stuff. And every Christmas, this man called my mom to wish us happy Christmas. And my mom, this July 3rd, will be 20 years that she's been dead. And do you know this man still calls me every Christmas? This is class, and this man didn't even need a program to have him to be just like that. But I remember when Rita started sponsoring me, and I told her, we were doing the steps again, and I told her what I had done as amends. And she said, Louise, that's really nice, but you know what? A drunk like you've got to continue to make living amends. It can't just stop here. I want more for you. And you've got to be good to the women in Alcoholics Anonymous, and especially the women in Alcoholics Anonymous, because you're still angry at men, so I don't want you around them right now. And because I was just angry, still had that, because I couldn't let it go that I still didn't know who my dad was. And And so she said, you've got to do for women. If women need a ride to a doctor's appointment or whatever it is you can do, you be of service. And so I did that kind of stuff. And then there was a woman, this little lady that lived in the courts where we had lived, and I called her Dearie, and she was kind of like the only grandmother figure that I had. And her daughter I call Aunt Ruth. She's like now a mom to me. And so whenever Aunt Ruth was going to go out of town, she'd always call me to take care of Dearie. And Dearie had grandkids, she has great-grandkids and all that, but I would tell Aunt Ruth, just let me know and I'll be there. And I remember one time Aunt Ruth just looking at me and saying, I can always count on you. And I thought, no, it's Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm thinking it's Alcoholics Anonymous. And so I'm there with Dearie, and I got to give this woman a bath. I knew how to do that now. And I got to make her dinner and set up her coffee for her and just be of service and love this little lady. And she, I remember one time getting her out, and she had a short-term memory loss. So she would ask the same question over and over. And I mean, sometimes like all day she would ask the same question. And you know what? I had to answer her with enthusiasm as if it was the first time she asked me. That was what Rita just laid that down. You cannot get stern with this lady at all. You have to love her. It was just all about love and service to this little lady. She was this little thing. And so, anyways, so I would do it. And she liked watching, this one John Wayne, Donovan's Reef movie, and we watch it over, because she wouldn't remember, watch it over and over. I still have that video today. But anyway, so I did her bath, and then I did her hair. I sat her in her little chair. I gave her a little manicure. I just fussed over her, and I found that this was really, it felt good. It felt good to do, like you were talking, Matt, about taking those good actions. It feels good, and you know it. And so she's clicking away watching her John Wayne movie. I'm sitting on the floor in front of her, and she's playing with my hair. And I just thought, wow, this is really cool. I would have missed this whole thing, And I looked up at her, and she was looking down at me, just gazing at me and playing with my hair. And she said, "Your mama would be so proud of you today." And it just like cracked, like my heart got really soft, and I didn't want you to know that, And I remember I tucked her in, and I got down to Aunt Ruth's house, which was next door, and I called Rita, and I said, "Rita, I think I know what you're talking about now. I think I'm getting this thing." Rita, "Oh, honey, that's good. But you know what? A drunk like you can't stop, Louise. You got to keep going, because you're a mean old thing." She's just like, "You got to keep moving. After Dearie, there's somebody else." And I was like, "Oh my God, Rita, I'm so tired, but okay, And so, and I've been moving ever since, since Rita has been was sponsoring me with that, and then I went through about 3 or 4 years ago, I went through a divorce. I just, he's a good member of Al-Anon, and if he was here, if he walked in the room, we'd give each other a hug and a kiss, and it'd be sincere, We really wish each other well, He's getting married in a few weeks, and he's a great guy, and he's marrying a really nice woman, and we really want the best for each other, but it just wasn't meant to be for us to stay, and I'm so glad that we could have a situation like that, because we practically grew up together, and anyways, I want to thank you, and I really don't want to tell you one last thing, but I will. Okay, because this is something new that just happened that I just, I didn't know about my dad, and I was up visiting a woman my mom named me after. I call her Aunt Louise, and just out of the blue, she said, "I knew your dad," and that just is really weird for me to hear somebody say to me, "Your dad." Those words don't go with me, and anyways. And I asked her, "Well, do you know his name?" And she's like, "I'm so old, I can't remember, Louise, but he worked with us." And I said, "Well, do you know his nationality?" And I thought, okay, you know what? I can't start drilling this woman, because Rita said, if you may never find this stuff out, and it might not be any of your business too, and you have to just accept that. And I came to that place like quite a few years ago that I just accepted that. And so, because I know that, God's got the plan, and I know I'm in his plan, but and I just have to trust that, because my life is still good. And so anyways, and it's funny how once you start letting things go, other things, the journey keeps going on. And so she said he was a Mexican man. He used to work with us. And I thought, oh, okay. So, I couldn't keep asking questions. That's all information she gave me. And I was driving somewhere with my auntie, and I said to Auntie, Aunt Louise told me that I just said it really calm and stuff. And because for years I'd asked these women over and over and over, and I drilled them. And the thing was, my amends to them was that I can't be a bully anymore. I can't keep making people, give me answers that they're not willing to give. And so, anyways, so my aunt, she started telling me a little bit. And it was something that I just never knew. I never thought of, and I never. That my mother was raped. She went to a party and a guy took her home and he raped her, and that's why my mother was very suicidal and just very, she held on to that for a long time. And then I have a new sponsor I've had for the last 4 years, Claire, and I remember it stung, it stung, and I just had to listen to whatever information that my aunt was going to tell me, and I can't drill her. I did all that before, and I can't. That this is 41 years of hiding a secret. And at their age, they don't air laundry, they don't air stuff, and she doesn't have a program to go to, so I can't force it. So I listened to what she had to tell me, and I thanked her for telling me. And then I went to my sponsor, and thank God, I said, it really stings, like how, and I said, I felt at first like it justified, me feeling so different and being different. See, I am, And since, she said, you're not walking this journey alone. You've got me and you've got a lot of other people. And it's just, that's been the new thing that's been going on. But I still have a lot of, there's a lot of hope. And since then, I've shared it a few times, and I've had people that share their story with me. And I'm not so different. And anyway, so I just wanted you to know how, this stuff does continue, and we can walk through it. I didn't have to take a drink over it. So I want to thank you very much for having me. Thanks.